to the man of the hour. I want to talk to Dudley Alexis and find out what it's like to be a winner. Dudley, what is it like to be an award-winning filmmaker, man?
Well, I don't know.
You don't know? It must feel pretty good.
Well, it happened, and I'm still trying to make sense of it. I think it's a good thing to be, to be recognized and by your peer, and that's all I can say, really.
So listen, what I want to really know, and what we ask all of our artists, how are you doing in this crazy time, in this COVID time? How are you making out as an artist?
Well, pretty much staying home, trying to, stay home, trying to make, keep within the safe distancing guideline, and at the same time trying to connect with friends, make sure people, know that you're okay. That's pretty much what I've been doing. At the same time, I've been trying to do some creative stuff, do some writing, do some of my art, and revise, projects that I'm working on. That's pretty much what I've been doing. And,
Wow.
It's kind of, I think after a few weeks, you kind of say, hey, you miss stuff you want to do, you miss that going out. You realize, you're more of a social person than you actually thought you were. That's pretty much it.
Yes. Well, I try not to go to the store too often. I love being in Target, and I love being in Publix. I don't know why, but and it's not like I like crowds, but not being able to do my favorite thing and go out and get food and get the stuff I like. I get it. You want to be social. You want to be around people.
Publix is like, going to Publix and the grocery store, the Target, and look like that's the most I've done, when it comes to going out. That's like, you're going out, where you going? That's all you can, go. Go to the CVS, go to Publix, or go to the local, convenience store. That's all you can do.
Nice. So Dudley, you're a filmmaker. How long have you been making films? Like, when did you know that you were going to actually get into filmmaking, and specifically the genre of documentaries? Like, how did you know this was going to be your thing?
Well, I've always been a film buff, like, forever. That's like, I love film. I love, like, I enjoy watching film, and when I'm having a bad time, so that's what I do. And let me tell you, like, my birthday is coming up, and one thing I always do for my birthday is go to the movie theater, spend a whole day there and watching, watching movies that I enjoy. I think, when, since the 10th grade, really, I've been doing pretty much the same thing, film, I've been interested in making film since the 10th grade, and from there, I went to the Art Institute. I wanted to actually study animation. From studying animation, and VFX, and I ended up editing a lot of my friends' work, and that's how I really, because I was in front of the computer, all my friends invited me to actually edit their work. So that's actually how I started. I started as an editor, and from editing, and I get involved more and more, and I started doing my own stuff. I started doing some short narratives, short documentaries. Cool. And I started working with for the Miccosukee tribe of Indians, doing local stories for them.
What kind of stuff were you editing?
Well, I was editing pretty much everything: narrative, documentaries, and commercials, pretty much everything people had, like, they will call me and I'll edit it. But it was fun. I enjoy editing, and it's just you have to sit down and watch a lot of videos, and hours on watching videos. And from editing, I really get a sense of storytelling. So that's where I kind of pick up, like, how stories are told. And when you're watching a film, when you watch movies constantly, you get you see the finished product, but you don't get an idea how, the thought process start to get to that finished product. So I think by starting as an editor, I kind of get how producers and directors think, and also how the audience will see it. So I was kind of in the middle of the two. So that's where I pick up, and from there I start doing my own work.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How long were you editing before you actually decided, I'm going to make my first film? I'm going to actually dive in and produce my own product instead of someone else's.
It took like a good 2 or 3 years of me just editing. I started just mostly editing 2 or 3 years, and it started really. It's when I was working. Before, when I was in school, I directed like 2 narrative in college. Those college, school college film, student films. But when I left college, I work a lot in advertising for different ad agencies. But it's when I was start working with the Mikasuki magazine, and I found, like, stories that interest me. How do I tell those stories? And that's when I found out, hey, probably I should be doing stories that interest me.
So tell me, what stories interest you? What actually, as a filmmaker, what turns you on? What winds your clock?
Well, I love history. I love history. I love history, and a lot of the stories that I like to talk about are history and why things, because a lot of time we don't understand how much, like, the past affect us. So much of our daily life is affected by what happened before. And that's one of the things that interests me a lot. And I like to tell stories about real people, and discovering exactly the people, who's behind the story, like, the actual person. This is those type of stuff that interests me. I like to dive into people's story.
Wow. So that I find that fascinating. And for the audience at home, what we want to do is dive in. We have a couple of videos here, but I want to dive into one of your videos. And you made a movie called Liberty in a Soup. And I want to show the trailer for this, and then I'd like you to react to what we're seeing here. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
January 1st marks the beginning of a new year, a reason to celebrate the possibilities of what the future will bring. For Haitians, the celebration is a little bit more special because it is also their Independence Day. The first day of January not only symbolizes looking forward to a fresh new start, but looking back at the events that influence many of the cultural rituals now practiced in the Common Era. Haitians celebrate their independence with a soup known as jumeau. The jumeau soup is a concretization of war and victory, oppression and emancipation, and the deeply rooted celebratory traditions of Haitian culture. Many wonder, how the jumeau soup became a staple of Haiti's Independence Day celebration. We will unravel the history of tradition rooting back to the Haitian Revolution.
Yes. Yes, Dudley, man. That's a great trailer. And I want to ask you, is that libertyinthesoup.com, is that still valid? Can people go there and check it out?
Yeah, it's actually available on Vimeo. You can stream it now on Vimeo, and if you go watch that libertyinthesoup.com, we can actually stream it.
So what made you want to dive into Haitian culture as far as independence and an exploration of their soup? And I want to remind the audience who's watching out there, I've had his soup, and I've been to your house, and I met your mom, and I had your soup. So I got to say, I was impressed. I liked it. But tell me, like, what got you interested in that?
Well, thank you for coming. It's just, I learned how to cook the soup while I was making the documentary, because I never did it before, and I become kind of pretty good at at cooking it now. The thing is, it's an interesting encounter with a cab driver in Vegas that really pushed me into doing the soup. At the time, I was working with the Miccosukee Tribe of Indians, and we were at a trade show in Vegas at NAB, the NAB trade show, and we were leaving. It was early in the morning, and the taxi driver asked me, "Hey, where from?" And I'm like, "I'm from Haiti." And he's like, "Oh man, you're from Haiti?" We started having a conversation about Haiti, and he started talking about the Haitian Revolution in details. That's what was was amazing about it. He knows the Haitian Revolution in details. And during the conversation, he started asking me about the soup, and I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm having this conversation in Vegas. A place you're not expecting to have. I'm not expecting to meet somebody in Vegas to talk to me so much about the Haitian Revolution." Well, and the fact he's talking about the soup.
You should know that Kimberly online is saying Vegas. so you've got some interest about this story in Vegas. Why were you in Vegas?
Well, it was the trade show was we were trying to go to a NAB and buy new equipment and see what was going on in the industry. But it's interesting to see, from that moment, I was like, all I wanted to know, I was like, "Oh my God, I have to make a documentary about that soup. I have to make a documentary about that soup." And that's pretty much how this whole journey started. And to see how it's from Vegas, I start telling that story.
Oh, wow. That's very cool. And then, so you said you learned how to make the soup right there by doing the movie. So it wasn't just a movie that affected other people, but you yourself were transformed as well during the process, right?
Yes. While I was making the documentary, I was discovering a lot of things about the soup. How stories around the soup, especially stories of women in the Haitian Revolution, how impactful the women were in the Haitian Revolution. The lady that started the Marie Claire, which started the whole tradition, learning a lot about her. It was really an experience of me, discovering a lot of things about myself too.
Wow, that's really cool. So the process of going through and showing the world about Haitian independence, what was the feedback like? What did you get back from your audience once it was released?
It's the most interesting thing that happened when I screened the documentary is different people have reaction to different part of the documentary. Depending on where the person is from, certain part is gonna. One thing I know in the documentary, I talk a little bit about the Maroons. A lot of people from Jamaica come in and talk to me about the Maroons. when I talk about Marie Claire words, a lot of like, Haitian women, like, come and talk to me about that, or Sunny Belair, they talk to me about that. And it's interesting to see how different people pick up different part of the documentary. That's what's the most interesting thing about it for me, is how different crowd responded to different segment of the documentary.
That is really cool. Do you mind if we show another insight, a little bit of a little bit more of this promo about Liberty in a Suit?
Yes, I don't mind.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's see a little more of Liberty in a Suit, and then we'll come back and talk about more of what you've done in the world of film.
At the end of the 18th century, 3 revolutions would reshape human society and challenge everything that happened before that time. First, the American Revolution, the French Revolution, then the Haitian Revolution.
Each of these other revolutions speak of the right of man in the context of the white man. The only movement of human being toward radical change, radical transformations that occurred prior to the 20th century to address now the liberation of the human is the Haitian Revolution. The Haitian Revolution doesn't speak about the liberation of the black or the white. The Haitian Revolution speaks about the liberation of the human.
Dudley, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. So tell us about that.
That's one thing I found out about the Haitian Revolution too, is how important the revolution was in regard of the history of human rights, and the Haitian Revolution, by many scholars, is considered one of the major key points of the history of human rights, in modern history, and to see one thing I found out about the Haitian Constitution of 1801, which was a major. Some of the things that were declared in that constitution was some major, it was the first time some major rights were guaranteed for somebody under a constitution. And when it comes to the right, of employment, people cannot employ you, that was in that constitution, cannot employ you on the basis of race. People cannot discriminate. You cannot be discriminated against, under the basis of race. That was in that constitution. So wow. It became like a major document, scholars are studying now in regard of the Haitian Revolution. That's one of the things I discovered, which was fascinating to me.
That is amazing. And Dudley, I just want to say that right now we have an audience watching on Facebook Live. We've got an audience watching right here on Zoom. Alexandra and Femi, thank you for joining us. The audience on Facebook, thank you for joining us. You are watching ArtServe Live with award-winning filmmaker Dudley Alexis. And Ryan, do we have any comments and questions coming in from Zoom or coming in from Facebook?
On Facebook, we have a happy birthday to Dudley. We have... let's see. Yay, nice to see you from Kimberly. The happy birthday came from Muriel.
Thank you.
Now, Dudley, is it your birthday today? Or
no, it's the end of the month, around Labor Day. And I'm hoping the theaters are open by then, because I want to see them.
All right. So
people say, why do you still go to movie theaters? I'm like, I love sound. They have great sound. You cannot get that from your house.
Well, the internet, we don't have amazing sound on the internet, but I do want to show one more clip from Liberty in the Soup before we get to the next segment. I think this is also very cool. Check it out.
I think Haiti is one of those places that's very misunderstood by outsiders, even by Haitian natives. Yes, we have some rough time, and we have some rough and tumble, earthquake, tremblement de terre, hurricane, and misfortune of our own doings. But this is part of nature, man. But I think the place have a lot to offer. Some people like that picture because that's what they see black countries and countries of African descent, and people like that's what they see it. Oh, Haiti's poor and things like that. Maybe some people are doing it because that's just the way they get paid. The positive of Haiti outshine all of the stuff that's shown in the media. They could show that.
Yeah, so he's talking about the media.
Well, the image of Haiti has been, kind of in the media. It's like every single time you see Haiti, I'm like, oh my God, this is not all there is to the country. It's also like every single time I watch something about Haiti, it's like the people that that's doing the story, they always stay in the same place. They stay somewhere in Port-au-Prince, never leave Port-au-Prince, which is and there's so many different parts, and Haiti is so diverse too. And I'm gonna tell you one thing I love about Haiti is different regions have different type of food. And you go to that region they cook their food a certain way, or they have a special dish that is known for that region. And my parents are from the South. We have something called tom tom that look like fufu, and this is one of something that they love. And you go to the northern part of Haiti, and you have people love to put cashew and peanuts in everything almost. So the foods kind of tell you how diverse kind of the island is, and how how different Haiti's actually is compared to how they portray it on TV.
And how do you personally feel that Haiti is portrayed on TV, and forget TV, popular culture? How do you feel Haiti's being represented, whether it's TV, movies, whether it's magazines or books? How do you feel like that's coming through?
Well, the one thing I always like to talk about is voices, and I always say, it's people are always gonna have to tell their story and their version of Haiti. I feel like it's the Haitian voices need to be heard, and I feel like we need to tell our own story. As Haitian myself, I like to tell stories about Haiti, to kind of counter the story they're kind of trying to portray. I remember I was working on a project, and somebody invited me and said, hey, we have some part in Creole, we need to do some edit, can you come and help us? So I show up and to help working on the project, and the person is not Haitian, and the person was showing some image, and I said, and it was a great image of Haiti, and I said, were you trying to put that story, you're really trying to put that environment out of context. It's not a good place to put that edit, and you really put it out of context, and it's not good what you're trying to say. The person looked at me and said, that's my opinion. And that's when I understand, it's like when the person said that's my opinion, I kind of left the project right there. And it kind of tells you how important it is for Haitian to be able to tell those stories.
Absolutely. I remember, and this was a long time ago, I remember watching Bad Boys 2, and they had that chase scene, and they didn't specifically say Haitians.
Yeah.
Right? Could have been any islander, like whether it's Bahamian, Jamaican, Haitian, you name it. But they had the dreads, and they had the really dark skin, and they were portrayed in this really negative light with the guns and the drugs and all this stuff on this car chase. And I thought to myself when I was watching the movie, like, boy, they've really just painted the islands with that one scene in the minds of millions of Americans, or even international moviegoers. They've painted the islanders as something very extreme, and it's an unfair portrayal.
It happens all the time. It
Yeah.
happens all the time in cinema, you know, and it's just sometimes you that's one of the reasons actually I don't like Bad Boys 2. And a lot of times people say, I'm like, no, even the third one, I didn't want to watch it because of that film. But it happens all the time, how they portray, people from, Africa, or people from the island, and I think sometimes, it's kind of hard to watch. It's hard to watch, but sometimes I'm wondering, it's like, did they ask anybody else how the people, that's, it's an accurate representation of,
It's clear they didn't ask you. They didn't ask you, Dudley, and that's
no.
the final product. Ryan, let's go back to the questions on Facebook. Is there anybody commenting on this very issue right now?
Yes. Well, let me see.
I think we have
a couple of people that remember what you're talking about. And there's a really great question in here. Can you talk about the production of Liberty in a Soup and the differences between producing that film and When Liberty Burned?
Well, Liberty in a Soup was kind of a hard documentary for me to produce, because I had to make so many different trips in Haiti. And traveling, when I was traveling in Haiti, I had one thing I had to put have in mind is, how do I travel, and knowing some of the places I'm gonna go, it's gonna be really remote, and I might not have access to certain things. And it's pretty much, I was traveling, make sure every single equipment that I have, like especially batteries, cards and tapes and all of that, I double them, and make sure I have double hard drive space, and make sure everywhere I go, because the one thing that scared me when I was going to Haiti, because I was one trip that I made, like the most of the trip was me just going around Haiti. That's one of the things I had in mind, is how do I not run out of tapes? At the time I was shooting with tape. That's another choice that I made. I said I need to shoot with tape, because I didn't want to go and take that time to transfer stuff from card to hard drive, and tape just kind of, I tape it, stack it, and I can digitize it when I get here. So that's one of the things I did.
What kind of tape? What kind of tape? I mean, we 35 millimeter. Like, what were you shooting on?
I was shooting on oh man, I forgot the type of camera. I was shooting on a Canon, and it was like HDV tape. And I make sure, I make sure that's one of the things. I make sure I had a lot of tapes, because I didn't want to run out of hard drive space. I have to go somewhere and find electricity and plug it in, because it's like I was going places that are really remote.
That was Liberty in a Soup, right?
That was Liberty in a Soup.
So did you shoot on tape for When Liberty Burns?
No. What that's one of the main things with Liberty in a Soup. When Liberty Burns, is like is the archival research that I had to do for that was the hardest part when I was doing When Liberty Burns, because a lot of the newspaper clips and a lot of the research I had to do for When Liberty Burns was pretty intensive, and make sure I make sure especially a lot of people I interview for when Liberty Burns, everybody they had a book of either about Miami or about their experience. I make sure I read the book first before I do the interview. So it was a lot of it was a lot more research when it comes to, that was the difference I can say between the two of them.
Wow. And so what I'm looking at right now and what I want the audience to check out is some posters from your first, from your Liberty in a Suit. I'm sorry, from When Liberty Burns, excuse me, from When Liberty Burns. And I got to tell you, one thing that is striking in this poster, what I love about this poster is that it looks like the real deal. And when I say that, meaning down to a Dudley Alexis film, the way Spike Lee used to put like a Spike Lee joint at the bottom of his posters, like this looks like real Hollywood right here. How did you decide to go with this look and this feel to represent your movie?
Oh man, I designed the poster myself, so it was kind of, I don't know. When you're designing stuff, sometimes something speaks to you.
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do. It's kind of hard to say why you go with that feel but the thing is, like, I like about those pictures, like, I like the fact, I feel like a lot of the pictures the people were looking at a distance, and in many ways, in the posters, I feel like a lot of people were never actually go in, and see exactly what's happening, and everybody was staying at a distance. And I kind of invite the people that are wanted to see the documentary to go in, and that's what I kind of, because everybody is looking at something is happening in there, but everybody was at a distance, and I just wanted the audience to actually go in. That's kind of one of the things I wanted to do with the poster.
Yes, and in this one, we see the 37th Miami Film Festival logo. But before we get to that, when we see Miami's Longest Nights, Miami's Darkest Hours, the Arthur Lee McDuffie story, why was this, and just for our audience at home, Dudley, why was this Miami's Darkest Hour? Can you explain that to us?
Well, the story, the hours of you can tell, like, the story of McDuffie. It's kind of one of the darkest story that happened in Miami, and it's a story, like, in many ways Miami is trying to forget. But what Miami's at the same time, Miami's trying to forget the story. But at the same time, when I was doing the documentary, when I tell somebody, especially people that lived it, and I say I'm doing a documentary about the McDuffie riot, there's two reactions I would get. It's either they look at me and just walk away, or they take a deep breath, sit down, and want to talk to me. And you can still see the pain in everybody that that lived it, and that's why I think it's still like one of the darkest some of the darkest hours Miami ever witnessed, and I feel like a lot of the especially, all you have to do is drive to Liberty City, you can still feel the presence of the riot there.
That is powerful, Dudley. That is so powerful. And I'm zooming in here because I want people to, like, really take stock of this. I want people to check this out. I want to show the trailer, but before I do, can you tell me, if somebody wanted to watch this film right now, where could they go? Where could they go after this interview and watch this film?
Well, the film is not available yet to stream or and we're still looking for distribution, and we kind of traveling, waiting to see how this whole thing is, what's happening with COVID, and I'm waiting to, so we can actually screen it throughout the city, and also, go into the whole festival circuit. But soon, sooner than later, it's gonna be available for the public to see.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, what I would like to do for the audience before we get into more discussion about this, let's actually take a look at the trailer that you made, When Liberty Burns, and then we'll talk about it on the other side. What do you say to that? Let's give this a shot. Here we go.
I think a lot of young people have no idea what McDuffie was. No idea. And as a matter of fact, I don't think it. I know it. The older people, it has a lasting effect, I think.
This is where the chase ended, and here is where the questions begin. McDuffie crashed his motorcycle, but some of the wounds he sustained are not consistent with the accident.
Some substantial use of force was used at the scene after the chase, and the subject died of critical injuries resulting from that use of force.
People just exploded. It was almost like someone had gone along and struck a match and threw on something. Boom.
It scared us. It scared white and black people.
I think this is one of the worst things that has happened in Miami, and I am very, very disappointed that someone was not held responsible for it.
Wow, that is, Dudley, that is powerful, especially ending with injustice like that. And I see interview footage there from former Attorney General Janet Reno, but I imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, was she working for the state of Florida during that time?
Yes, she was the district attorney for the Miami district attorney at the time. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty, like, when doing this interview, this documentary, and watching all the interviews, it was, and other witnesses, it was a pretty intense time, in her career, dealing with with the public, and also, at the same time dealing with the police force, and from somebody that actually talked to about Janet Reno, and around that time, says her relationship with the police force never been the same after that, because she after that, this whole McDuffie episode.
Wow. Wow. And I just have to ask this, the incident itself, for the people who are not aware of the McDuffie case, can you just take a minute and describe what happened and why you decided that this needed to be an artistic vision and an endeavor for you? Those two things. Can you cover that?
Well, what happened, it was December 1979, right before Christmas, and a few days before Christmas, and he was riding a motorcycle, and he was speeding. The police start chasing him, and by the time they caught up with him, they beat him up until they put him in a coma, and he died 3 days later. And what happened, the police officers tried to cover up the whole story, and from the cover up, the story made it in the news, and they more and more, the more stuff were coming out, the more it looked like actually they beat up McDuffie for for no reason. And when the officers were actually arrested and charged for manslaughter and second degree murder, they were, all of them were acquitted, and pretty much caused Miami to explode and become one of the worst episodes in Miami history. I decided to do that story. It's a friend of mine. We went to high school together. We pretty much grew up together. Had an altercation with the police, and he was shot on I-95. And I started watching, I started going I started researching the history of Miami and department and the police, and I came across the story, and I didn't know anything about McDuffie, and I started reading a lot about the story, and from there I said, okay, and coming from Miami, no one my age actually knew about the McDuffie story unless you had a parent that really lived it, will tell you about it. It was hard to find friends that actually knew about the story of McDuffie. So I said something like that need to be told because it's such a key part of the history of Miami. And also one of the reasons I want to tell the story is because so much of, if you drive to Liberty City today, the impact of that riot you can still see it. You can still see where there were you can see all the vacant lots that used to be businesses. You can see the disinvestment that actually happened in Liberty City right after the riot. And those are things for 40 years that's never been addressed, and I feel like, I needed to tell the story of McDuffie. And in a way, those things can be addressed now in the city of Miami.
I mean, I don't even know where to begin. Ryan, I'm going to come to you next. If you could check out the comments on Facebook and Zoom, the story you're telling and the trailer in my mind draws a parallel that seems to be repeating. Your story is back in the 70s. Am I correct?
It's 1979 to 1980.
Okay, so, and I'm 45. Basically, my whole life I've seen this unfold time and time again. And you could say whether it's Rodney King, you know what I mean? Whether it's Trayvon Martin, or whether it's Eric Garner, and then we've got the most recent case that happened in Georgia. Time and time again.
Actually, the interesting thing you mentioned that case, McDuffie came from the same town. They were born in the same town as that. Yeah.
Wait. So I just want to be perfectly clear. You're telling me that McDuffie and the gentleman from the most recent shooting, high-profile shooting, come from the same hometown?
Yes, Ahmed. They're both. They're both came from the same town in Georgia. I cannot remember the town right now on top of my head, but Buzzweed, Georgia. They were both born in Buzzweed, Georgia, which is interesting to see. How this story is being repeated constantly, and 40 years later, that the same thing is still happening in the news. We still and it plays in your consciousness constantly, and it's something you try to, it's not a good thing to have that being repeated in your consciousness constantly, all the time.
Dudley, the work that you're doing is beyond important and relevant and necessary. And I feel like everybody needs to see your film. And I've only seen the trailer in preparation for this interview, and we've just shown the trailer to our audience, but I want to be the first in line with a ticket in my hand to see your film. Can you tell me, in the short time of its release, what kind of impact has it had? And you know what, before you answer that, let's actually get Ryan to take a look at what the audience has been commenting on up till this moment.
Well, we have a couple of comments on Zoom. Both of these actually come from Femi. Most stories are from subjective viewpoints And that is why it is important for a culture to narrate its own truths, which I think is extremely relevant. And the work is also important because it humanizes McDuffie. The name of the town is Brunswick, Georgia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and thank you, Femi, for saying that. By the way, Femi was my producer doing the documentary, and she did a phenomenal job helping me telling the story, and especially helping me really research and find the family of McDuffie's family. And it was, and without her, so much of the documentary would not have been done. And thank you again, Femi.
On Facebook Live, we've got a comment here from Mark Rossmore, who said, "I've heard of the McDuffie riots, living in Miami 2/3 of my life, but wasn't that familiar with the story. I need to watch this documentary, and it's sad that it's another example of history repeating itself through today." And that previous question I asked you, Dudley, how is this impacting? How is your film, in its short time that you've had it on the show circuit, how is it received? How has it impacted your audiences? And what, if any, accolades did you get from that?
Well, the most important moment for me is when I saw the documentary to McDuffie's family. When they saw the documentary, that the fact, they'll approve of the documentary, and that moment to me was, that moment really was pretty impactful, because I wanted to tell a story that they'll be comfortable, they'll be proud of about McDuffie, because I wanted this documentary to be so much about McDuffie, and that's what I try to do. The response that I get, a lot of people tell me that they knew about the story, the impact, so much about the damage that actual riot caused, but they never knew who McDuffie actually was. And watching the documentary, they kind of get to know McDuffie a little bit more.
And what kind of praise or accolades did you get from your audience? Was this the big film? Was this the award?
Yes, at the Miami Film Festival, and I want to thank the Miami Film Festival. I won the Made in Miami Night Challenge, award, which thank you, and I want to thank everybody that made how that happened.
So, can you describe what category? What does that mean? The Night Challenge. What was that?
The Night Challenge is help, it's an award that is given to the Miami filmmakers that is in the festival, and it's with a $30,000 prize, and I was so happy, and it's one of those awards that's really pushing Miami filmmakers, and one thing I can say, some of my friends, some of the film community here, there's some really great filmmakers who are coming to Miami now.
All right, and what I'm telling in the chat section, I am telling our audience to congratulate Dudley. Show him your support, show him your love. Press the like button, press the heart button, and show Dudley your appreciation for diving in and doing this amazing work in this amazing documentary. Dudley, I have to ask you, a film like this, there's research and there's interviews, and you have to be the producer. You have to write it and direct it. What kind of toll did this take on you as an artist?
Well, the most difficult thing was interviewing. One, I have to do the interview, actually doing the editing. It's because a lot of the documentary, especially editing the interviews coming from McDuffie's family, it's still an emotional, it's extremely emotional for them to talk about it, and to edit that, it was kind of, you go to that same emotional voyage, I can say, and it was kind of tough sitting down and edit the documentary. And that was probably, when I said that was an emotional project for me to do, and what actually really was, coming back and every single day, and I work during the day and come back at night and actually edit the documentary. And it's I spent months, getting like getting 1 or 2 hours sleep every night, but coming editing the family was really emotional. It was really, really take a toll. It was pretty heavy.
And who are we looking at in this photo?
This is Miss Forrestine Reed. She is McDuffie's sister. That's her going to newspapers and stuff. She actually archived about the actual incident. When I interviewed her, she really welcomed us to her house. It was a really great experience, and I really thank her for being able to sit down with us and let us know exactly who her brother was.
Were you the interviewer, or were you also the photographer, or both, or did you have a crew with you?
Both. And also at the time, I also had Femi there with me, helping me to the interview. And here we have Lonnie Lawrence, Officer Lonnie Lawrence. He's a veteran of the Miami-Dade Police Force and also correction. And he was a friend of McDuffie, childhood friend, grew up together, grew up in Overtown together. And at the time this whole thing was happening, he was I think PR, something you would say like a PR director for the Miami-Dade Police Force at the time. And that was pretty much, that was him giving me a tour of Overtown while I was filming the documentary.
Here's another view of the poster. Very cool. I do like this view with the smoke in the background. It's very haunting, like the cars turning onto a street where there's just madness happening.
It was pretty. Yeah, it was the riot was the biggest riot in the country before the civil rights movement,
And
I mean, not before. I'm sorry about that.
I was going to say, and after, you mean?
After the civil rights movement. Sorry about that. It was
because no one had a time machine.
And they had to call the National Guard, and Carter was the president at the time. He had to come down here to really talk to the people. So it was a pretty intense time for Miami.
So a lot of people are commenting, and I wanted to go back to Ryan, and people have been really taken with your explanations and your insights into this important film, which I think should be seen by the whole world. I think this should be in classrooms. That's my opinion. Ryan, what are other people saying about Dudley's film?
That filmmaking has power. Stories like yours will help raise the awareness, and thank you for telling it. Another comment comes from Anderson. Oh, that previous one was from Michelle. Next one comes from Anderson. He says, I've lived in Miami all my life and have never heard of McDuffie riots until I saw the documentary.
Wow.
Yeah. Rodler wants to know, how has the film impacted you personally?
Well, it's the film had, it really, because of time, and one thing I can say, I spent an entire year really almost cut off from a lot of people, editing and getting stuff done. I can say, the impact of the film is really that the editing of the film and going through that emotional process of editing this, this really emotional project of at the same time being cut up. That's pretty much the impact of, like, I still kind of still feel it today,
Yeah.
And it was, that's what I will say, and when you work, what I will tell people next time, next time I'm doing, a project that is so similar, I would like to get a lot of emotional support around me, because it take a toll on you.
Well, we want to say that, we're here for you as an arts organization. ArtServe supports artists, and we're here for artists. And when you're going through this is the untold side. People might see your finished product, but they don't know how it impacts you emotionally. And we feel like we understand that, and you're always welcome at ArtServe. And I want to make this offer to you. I'd like to do a Dudley Alexis screening at ArtServe, and to show your films. And if you want to show Liberty in a Soup, if you want to show When Liberty Burns, I personally want to invite you to show your films at ArtServe.
I'm open to that. I'm definitely open to that. So, yes.
Yeah, we should do it. We really need to organize groups of people to come in and watch your amazing work.
Thank you.
That'd be awesome. So we're getting down to the end of the hour, and we've really been on an emotional roller coaster here. I mean, I've been touched, and it's obvious that the audience has been touched by your words. But I would be remiss if I didn't also say to the audience, he's not just an award-winning filmmaker, but Dudley, you got to show us that work in the background. This is your artwork as well. Am I right?
Yeah, those are my artwork in the background. Yes.
And tell me, what kind of medium are you working with, and what are you trying to portray in your work?
Well, like pretty much my artwork, a lot of the artwork I do it's when, between film, when you want to take a break from filming, I kind of do some artwork, and it helped me. It helped me think, and a lot of my work, I think I try to explore spirituality a lot in my work. So that's what I try to do, and it helped me in many ways. Kind of, it relaxes me when I'm doing, the artwork.
And where could we, if we wanted to see your work out in a gallery or in a collection somewhere, where can we actually engage your artwork?
Well, I've been in a few shows, but I don't have. There's not any shows happening right now. But one thing I want to do, I want to actually start showing more of my work online, which I don't really do often. But yeah, I think I should start posting them more.
Well, you definitely should have them during your film screenings. You should take home a piece of Dudley Alexis after they come out of the movie. But I will say that I think your work looks really cool. Especially, I like that red and gold piece. What kind of material are you working with for the red and gold?
Well, it's mostly it's mixed media, from wood to wood, clay, and all of it, it's pretty much wood and clay. That's pretty much it.
All right. Well, listen, Dudley, this has been beyond spectacular. This has been amazing. Ryan, I want to come to you just one more time and ask you, are there any last minute comments or questions from our audience?
We have a comment on Zoom, or a comment and question from Femi. She says she loves your technical skills, and when will you start teaching others?
Well, I don't know. I'll probably set up some classes and teach people how pretty much a lot about editing. That's one thing I know. I know a lot about editing. I know about editing software. So pretty much, one day I put up a class together for a few people, and yeah.
Well, Dudley, I'm actually going to be doing a short 6-part series on graphic design. And if you want to come in with me on the video editing module and talk about how to do simple cuts and simple edits for artists to learn, we'd love to have you as a guest presenter.
Oh, that sounds good. That sounds really good.
Yeah, we could do it. We could do it together. So we could both show like our techniques.
Okay. That's actually, yes.
I mean, I'm no award winner, so you're probably gonna steal the show.
No,
I'm just gonna show them.
I've seen your work. You know, you don't need no award to know, you're good. So yeah, I've seen your work.
So we're so happy that you were here today, Dudley. And
one thing I want to say, I want to talk here. I want to thank, my sponsors, that helped me get this documentary done. I want to thank, the Apollica CDC and the Green Family Foundation. The Green Family Foundation really came in and helped me finish, take this documentary to the finish line. And I just want to thank them. And also Sunlight, which also helped me, they came in and really helped me, with some funding and get, this documentary to the finish line. And one thing, like a lot of the documentary is self-funded, but if that did not come in, I did not know, if I'll be able to finish the documentary. And I want to thank them.
Well, listen, I'm so happy that you're here with us. And we are, just to let the audience know, this has been a presentation of ArtServe Live featuring award-winning, super awesome filmmaker and artist, Dudley Alexis.